Hey guys, and welcome back to another video with Tylor. Um, a couple things. I'm gonna fix my makeup because I have a cold, like 100% for sure. I know it's a cold. My nose has been nonstop running. I sound nasally, like I'm pretty sure you guys can hear it. I'm sniffling a lot, and my throat has felt like the Sahara Desert for the past 3 fucking days, and no amount of liquid or type of beverage can suffice the fucking burning. So, I've been sitting on this video for a while because it's either bullshit at work, or because I'm sick, and I just honestly don't want to sit on it any longer. I've been wanting to go over this case for a while with you guys, so if you don't mind nasally noise and the sniffling and whatnot, then I would love to go over this case with you guys and not delay it any longer. So let's get into it. Warning, this video is going to contain details of a child murder, stabbing, physical assault, possibly sexual assault, and almost anything in between. If you are easily triggered or sensitive to any of these topics or categories, I do recommend that you click off of this video. If you continue to watch, you have been advised that such things will be mentioned within this story. So, ooh, it's pretty gruesome. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I kind of want to start off with Madeline Maddie Ray Clifton. So, Maddie Clifton was born on June 17th, 1990, to both Sheila Clifton and Steve Clifton in Jacksonville, Florida. Maddie was described to be a lively young girl. Descriptions of her range from being a tomboy who, I love that term. I know a lot of people try to turn it negative, but tomboy is something I resonate with. I could be very boyish in some areas, but love to dress up and do my makeup and get my nails done every once in a while. And she kind of gave me that energy. She was said to dress up as a ballerina, but love to play soccer and football and all sorts of sports and get dirty and hang out with her friends outside and climb trees. And she loved to dress up, and she loved to do her makeup, and she was a sweet little girl. Her person that plays part in this is her older sister, Jessica Clifton, who was 11 years old at the time that everything went down, and Maddie was only 8 years of age. Joshua Phillips is another person involved in this story. He was born to Melissa and Steve Phillips on March 17th, 1984 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Joshua and his family relocated to Jacksonville, Florida, and were only 3 houses down from the Clifton family. His dad was some sort of computer engineer in IT, and his mother was a stay-at-home mom. It was said that at 14 years of age, he had relocated with his family to Jacksonville, Florida, and it was said that neighbors would state that he was a very quiet and friendly individual, and at school he was documented to be a funny, friendly, popular kid. So that was kind of the public's reception of him. But behind closed doors, his mother, I think her name is Missy, not Melissa. His mother and him would walk around eggshells when it came to the father, Steve, because Steve was known to be, I think his name is Steve, he was known to be a very abusive individual who was a drug addict and known to be an alcoholic. So he would beat them regularly. He would hit them, and to the extent of the abuse that was described, he would just get physical with them. Steve was also a very strict parent. It was said that Joshua could not be alone with friends over at the house, and he actually couldn't have friends over at all. So his dad was, and it wasn't even coming from the mom, like there was nothing said about the mom being strict, it was really just the dad. So Joshua, like, you kind of understand what they mean by walking around eggshells, because Joshua couldn't even bring friends over, so unless he got permission. And even then, there was like this weird, it says it on Wikipedia and some media sources that even then, like, Steve didn't like Joshua having friends over, and he didn't like Joshua having little girls over. Like, it was this kind of weird detail that they specifically put out there. It was just kind of weird. Like, the wife would go on to say that she didn't understand why her husband didn't like little girls, that he just didn't. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because later on I do have sort of an opinion as to why things maybe happened, and I feel like that plays into it. So it's also just a weird fucking detail they threw out there. Like, okay. Like, how do you take that? He didn't like little girls and little kids over. Especially little girls. Alright, thanks for the emphasis on that, for no fucking reason. On November 3rd, 1998, it was said that Maddie was playing with a couple of kids within their neighborhood. And I guess they were playing like golf, they were playing with golf balls, and they were using up their supply of golf balls to the point where Maddie was like bothering her older sister Jessica at the house to come help them look for the ones that they had lost, and like, I guess maybe like aimlessly hit around the neighborhood. And Jessica would go on to say that she recalls kind of like telling her sister to leave her alone, because at the time she was the last one that needed to finish her homework and practice her piano so she could go outside and play with the other kids. And before I proceed any further, I kind of wanted to set the environment for you guys, just to have a better understanding of kind of what it was like at this time. So what I mean by that is, because if I were to go on, you guys would kind of roll your eyes and wonder why certain things were done the way they were. At this time, I remember even having a bit of a childhood like this, where parents didn't really have to worry about their children playing with other kids in the neighborhood unsupervised. This is a time we're talking about where neighbors would borrow fucking food from each other, eggs, sugar, spices, where screen doors were left unopened, front doors were left unlocked, windows were left open. You didn't have to worry about security as much as you do nowadays versus then. Back then, it was more carefree. Children were safer. There were less, in some areas, of course, but I guess in this setting and at this time in Jacksonville, Florida specifically, there wasn't any worry about kidnapping or people breaking into your house or climbing up to an open window and getting inside. There was no worry about murders or anything of that sort. And I'm not saying the world was perfect, but crime wasn't as serious and it wasn't as taken seriously now as it was then. So I just wanted to let you guys know, so you're not like, why the fuck were these kids out by themselves, if they, but I just don't want to hear any victim blaming. Well, like, if the parents were with them, like, it's a hard lesson learned, and at the time, this is just how it was. It was completely normal. And again, as a kid, I remember that with my parents. Like, I would go out and play on the front yard for like hours on end just by myself. Like, I didn't even have my younger siblings at the time. I just had me, myself, and I. And I would climb the trees in our front yard for hours on end without my mom really watching. She just watched from like the window occasionally from the house. I would like scooter up and down the street, not have to worry about anybody stopping me or trying to grab me. I would talk to my neighbors all the time. They were not strangers to me. Nowadays, I don't know my fucking neighbors as an adult. I don't know my neighbors. I don't want to talk to them. I don't fucking care for them. And the most respectful way possible to put that, I'm pretty sure anybody will agree with me. Like, it's just how it is today. But back then, like, everybody knew everyone. Everybody was friendly. So just keep that in mind as we venture forward. So, and another thing too, Another thing too is I got most of my notes from a podcast or just like the like timeline of events from a podcast called Morbid, I believe. They did a special episode with the victim's family member, Jessica Clifton, and she was clarifying a couple things, and so I kind of just went off what she was providing, because what better source of information than the actual person that kind of, that dealt with a lot of this at the time. So, and was there. All the kids were playing with this guy named Larry, who happened to be an older gentleman that had some things on his record that were pretty questionable after the fact. They thought that he was possibly a suspect in the end because he had a couple sexual assault charges on his record that were dropped because nobody followed through with them, but it still kind of raised a red flag for police and detectives. So the kids in the neighborhood, including Maddie, were playing with this guy named Larry. But of course, media sources will kind of go on to say and make it seem like the kids were left alone with this guy and that it was just okay with the parents. But Jessica would kind of go on to clarify that that wasn't the case. Their parents wouldn't just let them hang out with some old dude with a questionable reputation. They were all playing together with him, so nobody was left alone with him. So they were playing golf, and as I was kind of mentioning, they ran out at one point, and Larry had kind of told the kids, I'm out of golf balls, I don't have any more for you, you guys are going to have to go get your own, and basically bring your own, he's like, bitch, what do I look like I'm made of money? I totally get that. Sometimes you play with kids, and they just think you're an endless fountain of whatever you have, whether it's water balloons, sports, so he's kind of hey, you guys are going to have to get your own, and we can keep playing, but we either need to find the golf balls that we hit around the neighborhood, or we need to get more from somewhere else. So Justin walks Maddie down to her house because I guess Maddie might have had a couple more golf balls that they could use, or she was going to go ask her parents if they might have any that they know of. And so Justin is one of the kids that walks her down to her house, and when they get there, Justin waits for her outside as she goes inside to ask her older sister or anybody there if they have golf balls, if there's anything that they can use that she can bring back to everybody else. And Jessica is kind of saying, hey, I'm trying to do my homework, I'm trying to get out there with you guys and play too, I'm just trying to focus on this. And eventually Maddie gives up searching for more because she can't find any. Justin at this point was getting tired of waiting for her outside the house, so he actually left and went back to the other kids. And in the podcast with Jessica Clifton, this is a part that she says Justin regrets and Jessica regrets, because this is kind of where everything goes downhill. So Justin leaves, Jessica stays at the house because she's doing her homework and whatever she needs to do to complete in order to go play with the kids, because that sounds familiar to me in my childhood. If I didn't finish my homework or any of my chores, I was not allowed to do a goddamn thing. I could not leave the house, I could not play video games, I could not go with friends, I couldn't do anything. So she is just trying to focus on her stuff, and Maddie leaves and basically ventures on her own in search of golf balls. Justin, of course, is I'll meet you with the rest of the kids, but I'm tired of waiting for you, I'll see you there. Maddie's kind of walking down the block, going back to meet the rest of the kids, and on her way, I believe that's kind of where we're at, is she's venturing through the neighborhood, still looking for golf balls, and at this point, again, everybody she knows, she's friendly with, so she comes across the next person, which happens to be Joshua Phillips. Josh is in his front yard, I don't know, minding his own business, playing with it by himself. He sees Maddie walking by, and Maddie takes the time to ask her if he's seen any golf balls, if he has any. She's collecting them to bring back to the other kids so they can continue to play. And it's kind of said at this point that Maddie wanted to play with Josh. He had like a baseball bat and he was just playing by himself, and she wanted to join the fun and completely forgot about like, the golf balls and going back to the other kids. So Josh kind of agrees and he's like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, I guess we can play together, but only for a short amount of time because my dad's going to be home soon, and if he sees that you're here or like we're playing or you're in my house, he's like, I'm going to get in trouble. So he agrees to play with her, but he kind of limits it to like a short play date because of his dad. Maddie is super friendly and a sweet girl, and she'll take that. She's like, yeah, I mean, I still want to play, and I get that. Like, let's play softball. So, just a little backstory. Maddie is a super friendly girl, but early on it was said that her parents didn't want her or Jessica to interact with Josh because of some of his behavior in the past. And my opinion on some of this stuff is I don't understand why his parents or the Clifton parents didn't take any harsher disciplinary action that should have taken place. And again, I'm not blaming them. I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, they're like, oh, he's a kid. Like, he'll grow out of it. He'll correct himself. Like, he's just learning. And to a certain point, I understand that. But some of the shit that went down, I honestly don't know how this kid wasn't documented early on with police to be a creep. Because the reason that the Cliftons didn't want their daughters like interacting with him is because Josh was said to have made like a sexual comment or something about Jessica or Maddie, to Maddie or Jessica about like sex or something of that sort. And of course, Jessica would go on to say that they kind of reported it to their parents, and their parents was like, yeah, that's not appropriate to me, like, don't hang out with that boy. And then after a while, it kind of blew over, and they were back to like seeing him around the neighborhood and being friendly and saying hello. And then either before or after that, Jessica would go on to say in the podcast that there was another situation where Josh was breaking into their house. So there was one time when I guess he had broken a window, and Jessica and Maddie came home and with their grandmother. There was a broken window. A picture of Jessica was stolen, and Josh had stapled the bed sheets of Maddie, and I believe Jessica stapled their bed sheets to the bed. Now, I don't know how they know he did it. I'm going to assume somebody caught him red-handed. He confessed to it. Somebody else might have seen him leave the house, break into the house. Benefit of the doubt. But so those two things happened. Pictures was stolen. I have my notes here just to make sure I don't misconstrue anything. But it says he stapled furniture and Maddie's bed sheets to her bed, hammered holes in their walls, and didn't steal anything but a photo of Jessica. There was also mention of a cordless phone. So like when phones were kind of coming onto the scene, there was mention that he, again, I don't know how this was proven that it was him. And I'm not defending him. I'm just saying I wish there was a definite oh, we caught him or he confessed, because again, it's like, how do we really know this was him, that this happened? And again, why was this not fucking reported? Like, documented at least. Like, I don't know if you can do that with police or maybe a fucking counselor of some sort, but just be like, hey, like, he's a kid, like, just pay for new furniture, and new sheets, and we'll call it a deal. But like, it should have been documented that he was breaking a window to get into the house, stapling holes and shit into furniture and sheets, and stealing photos of Jessica. And then with the cordless phone, the Clifton family was getting unexplained sex call bills billed to their home, and it was tied to their phone. So they were the reason they didn't question the girls was because they were like, Jessica's 11, Maddie's 8 years old. Neither of them know how to, operate a phone and, know how to use any of that. And Josh was 14 years of age, and he, was known to kind of surf the web and look into shit like that. So they figured, I guess, maybe like he was the one that knew how to operate a phone and like get that kind of shit going. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how they can confidently say that was him. I don't really know how they even prove that. We're gonna have to take their word for it. I'm just being reasonable. Like, I wish that they were like, yeah, neighbors saw him, or like, because it's like, if the grandma had seen him like breaking a window and like doing that kind of shit, I don't know about her. I'd be like, who are you? Who are your parents? We're getting in touch with them right now, and we're gonna call and talk to the police, or I'm gonna have them follow through with getting you a counselor, because that's not okay behavior. There's a difference between like throwing a tantrum and throwing the shit across the room versus like breaking into somebody's house at 14 years of age and stealing a photo of them and like using their phones to like call people that get paid by the minute to do sexy shit with you over the phone. Like, I don't know how that just went by so smoothly, but it did. So anyways, like, Josh lets Maddie play with him, and they're playing softball. And at one point during play, I don't know if it was on purpose or an accident, it was kind of reported to be an accident at first, but Josh hits Maddie in the eye accidentally, and she begins to cry. It is said by him that, and this is another thing I don't understand, like, at this time of night, you would think people would hear it, they'd be up, they would realize that there's like a fucking 8-year-old out here screaming her head off and crying, but I guess not. So he said that she started crying, and he started panicking, so to shut her up, he basically hit her over the head one more time. And I don't know if we're talking about a wooden bat or a metal bat, but either way, it was an overhead swing to knock her out and stop her from crying. He then went ahead and dragged her inside his house, all the way up to the bedroom, where he decided that the best place to hide her body was under his bed. Under his waterbed, like within the bed frame. He tucked her in there, and after assaulting her with a bat a couple of times in order to, I'm pretty sure his goal at this point was to kill her or make her unconscious, make her stop crying. I don't think he cared what came first. Whether it was like her being unconscious or being dead, he just wanted her to stop crying so nobody would hear her. Dragged her in the room, tucked her under the bed. He went ahead and cleaned himself up because he did have blood on him. And as he was, or he went to like dispose of the bat, put it back, clean the softball off and the baseball bat off, like literally detailing things that were a part of the crime scene. He was like literally detailing things that were a part of like the assault. Like, he was cleaning the baseball bat and the baseball softball itself of blood to hide any signs of it happening. And on his way back into the bedroom, it was said that he had still heard her moaning in pain. So he opened the bed, pulled her body out, and stabbed her 2 times in the neck and about 8 or 9 times in the chest. And it was reported that she even had stab wounds a couple of times in the abdomen. He had used like a pocket knife or a Swiss Army knife of some sort, like a handy tool that he had within his bedroom to cut her. He then put it back and tucked her body back into underneath the bed where he had first put her, where she had basically bled to death. He then decided to clean himself off by going into the bathroom and taking a shower, cleaning up again any sign or evidence that Maddie was in his bedroom or that he had harmed somebody. His dad then came home, and it was at this point that the Clifton family, the mother in particular, Melissa, had realized that her daughter was gone. It was dinner time. She was trying to call in the kids for dinner. Jessica was the only one that was present, of course, because she didn't get to finish her homework on time. And when she had asked Jessica where her sister was, Jessica had no idea. So she asked Jessica to get on her bike, go door to door, ask anybody if they had seen her, while the mother went ahead and did the same thing pretty much, scouring the neighborhood up and down, yelling Maddie's name. So when Josh's dad had gotten home, he, answered the door, and it was a panicked Melissa who had said she couldn't find Maddie. Joshua's father kind of figured Maddie was a kid in the neighborhood and figured Josh might have known her because, they're bound to cross paths and play with each other. So he had asked Josh to go out and help the family look for her. Which honestly to me I think is the most sickening part of this entire situation is the fact that despite her body being under his bed, he still took the time to help them search for her. He was literally like a wolf amongst sheep. So he played innocent. Would literally, even when search parties were going on, they had the fucking fire department out here taking a look at the sewers and tunnels and anything in between, checking yards of land, anywhere and everywhere that a child could possibly get lost or wander into, and they still couldn't find her. And Josh was over here trying to help them look for her and pretending to be a good guy. All the meanwhile, he would go to bed sleeping on top of her decaying body. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will, because for me, I have not heard of a more fucked up case in my life before. I'm sure there's others out there, but this is definitely the first in a while where it's really gruesome. About a week later, Josh had gotten up, ready for school, headed out the door, took the bus, and his mother was said to have a couple hours before she had to go to work. And she had wandered into her son's bedroom only to smell the most awful smells of all. And at first she thought it was just her son being lazy, not cleaning up after himself. There's gotta be, and I totally get that. I used to share a room with my brother, and honestly, it could be anything. Food, drinks, dirty laundry, fucking mildew, I don't know. But she she walked past her son's room and was like, okay, this is disgusting. There's something going on here. Something doesn't smell good. And Josh had, reportedly, he had pet birds, something in a cage that she had thought, okay, maybe he's just not maintaining their cage. That's why it smells in here. It needs to be deep cleaned. That explains the odor that's in the air here. So she goes into his room and she figures, I'm going to clean this cage, make it smell a lot better in here, make sure there's no moldy or rotting food in here or anything of that sort. It gets to a point where she realizes, after cleaning, after removing every possibility, it still smells. So she kind of, realizes that the smell is coming from the bed. So she gets close to the bed, she realizes, okay, it's a water bed, and, they're bound to kind of leak every once in a while, and she figured, maybe some water got out, got on the floor, on the headboard, and now maybe there's mold growing, and that's the smell. Water gets in the carpet, if it doesn't dry, it tends to kind of smell disgusting. So she thought, that's what's going on here. She, is inspecting the bed and realizes that there is a sock sticking out at the end of the bed, right? So she thinks, okay, maybe there's laundry or something stuck in here. She's just trying to figure out why it smells so disgusting in this room. She lifts the bed thinking she's gonna find like, again, trash, something rotting, to explain the smell. As soon as she lifts the bed, she sees Maddie Clifton laying underneath the waterbed, unconscious, dead, and pretty much decaying at this point. And that was the source of the smell coming from his room. Oh, God, I could only imagine, as a mom, discovering that your son or your child has something to do with the disappearance of a little girl, but most, even worse than that, actually killed them. And, they killed them. They were the killer of this missing child in the neighborhood. So, she puts the bed back down, and of course, she's hysterical, she's in a panic, she has no fucking idea what to do. And just like any of us would, your literal child just murdered another child. It's the fuckedest fucked it could get. But I honestly respect this mother's actions, as most difficult as this might have been. She did the right thing. She called her husband, got his voicemail, told him to call her back, it's an emergency, and was waiting for his call. But while she was waiting for his call, she, went across the street where the Clifton family's house was, and because everybody was looking for Maddie, it was under investigation, there was a bunch of cops, doing surveillance and sitting outside the house, kind of on this case. So she went to the first cop that was there upon walking over, and she had told him that, she's hysterical, she's crying, she feels that she can't say very much to him, but she just tells him, I need you to come to my house, I need to show you something. So he calls back up for a couple cops to come with him, because I think he was kind of sketched that this lady was crying and just kind of came up to him and was like, hey, you need to come to my house. He was like, okay, give me 1 second, let me get some people. And he went over there for her to show him the body of Maddie Clifton. Of course, he had radioed that they found the body, and within minutes, cops were flooding the scene, confiscating a bunch of evidence, searching through the room, making sure that they didn't overlook anything, and of course, confiscating Maddie Clifton's body. On top of that, a police officer was sent over to deliver the unfortunate news to the Clifton family that Maddie's body had indeed been found, but she was not alive. There's so many things that go on with that kind of situation. Mrs. Phillips would go on to say that she recalls the moment they had found her body, that she had showed them the body, and that she had founded it and reported it, that she knew the Cliftons, even within those vital moments, were still hanging on to hope that they'd find Maddie and that she'd be alive, even though Miss Phillips had discovered her body and knew that she was, she was dead, which sucks. Really sucks to be the bearer of bad news, and it sucks that on top of it, her son killed her. Joshua was picked up from school by the police and taken home, and they had basically told him, the jig is up, dude. Your mom found the body, she turned you in, you're done for. We're pretty much just sitting here for your official confession and for you to tell us the time of events. Joshua did admit to what he did. He did go over the time of events, and it did match up. Larry, the older gentleman, was not a suspect anymore because Joshua had pretty much been found out. But he was a suspect because he would have definitely taken the blame, because they were like, dude, you're an older dude, you're hanging out with all these kids, this is not looking good for you. And then Miss Phillips had turned in Joshua. So my opinion on this is, Joshua goes on to say in his confession that the reason he did it was to avoid the wrath of his father, basically. And I'm not defending Joshua, but to me it kind of makes sense why he had killed Maddie, because he was so fearful of his dad finding out that he had even hit her in the eyeball, that in his mind, the only way he felt that he would get out of this situation and avoid the wrath of his father was if he had eliminated the problem, which was Maddie. Like, in his mind, she was the issue. She's crying. She has this black eye because he accidentally hit her. She's going to go tell her parents. Her parents are going to come to his parents, and then his dad's going to find out, and then he's going to be in trouble, and his dad's going to hurt him. Like, the fact that there was documented abuse going on from Mr. Phillips to Mrs. Phillips and the child to Joshua just shows that, and again, I'm not defending him, I'm just saying, like, let's acknowledge the fact that his instincts told him to kill her because in his mind, he knew that if she lived and his dad had found out, that his father might have killed him. So it was like, kill or be killed. And that's just my personal opinion. That's just a thought. I don't 100% believe in that. I just think out of all the scenarios, that could be a possibility. So I'm just sharing that. I also think, like, Mr. and Mrs. Phillips were just not great parents. I mean, it was reported that on the computer activity, literally right before Maddie was murdered by Josh, that Josh was looking up child pornography. This 14-year-old boy was literally interested in child pornography at his age. And it's like, children are not into those things. They don't just one day are like, you know what, I'm going to look up child pornography. I'm just going to do it. I'm just so fascinated by it. They don't adopt those things. They don't just pick it up randomly one day. It's influenced. There's an example in their life that sent something like that for them, and that's why they pursue it. And I feel like maybe Mr. Phillips was not into little girls or didn't like little children because maybe there was a little more going on there. I just don't understand, like, why he was looking into that stuff on his own. Again, not defending him, I'm just curious as to his behaviors. Like, am I wrong? Like, kids don't just, like, when I was a kid, I just didn't randomly, like, look into that shit. I was more so into child things, like, I don't know, Barbie dolls, fashion, makeup, like, I just think it's really bizarre that that's something that he went on to explore by himself, and how he knew how to look into it, too. So, I don't know. That photo that he had stolen of Jessica was found on his headboard. So, in the end, all in all, I believe there was, like, this very huge obsession with Jessica. And I think, honestly, and a lot of other people feel this way, like in the media or other videos, they feel that whether it was Jessica or Maddie that had strolled up to his house that day, they feel like either one would have probably been taken. I just think, like, the most messed up part was that this kid literally lied, like, through the entire situation. When Jessica had knocked on his door to ask Josh if he had seen her sister, he had said no. And he had offered to go look for her, even though he had known where she was the entire time. It was just like, it's just honestly disgusting, and it blows my mind. And they trialed him as an adult in court, which, yeah, I think is fair. You know, it's kind of hard because it's like, I feel like his actions were behind, again, and fueled by the fear of his father. And another part of me believes that he may have intentionally done it. The coroner and the autopsy done on Maddie's body goes on to show that he may have even fumbled, I don't know if that's the word, he may have touched her body after killing her. There was kind of evidence pointing to him possibly touching her chest. He had definitely removed her panties. He had definitely removed her panties. He had definitely removed her bottoms and tried to lie and say that they had come off when he was dragging her into the house, into the bedroom, which is just a flat-out lie. Like, no matter how hard you're dragging somebody, their clothes do not slip off like that so easily. So he tried to hide his tracks by blaming it on the environment. You know, like, oh, I was dragging her, like, that's why, like, they came off, they slid off, and people were not having it. They're like, bro, like, I understand maybe her bottoms, but her panties, too, like not even then, even fully off, but just partially off. It just didn't add up, and it was just really grimy, and he did not look good. And then again, the fact that he's researching like child pornography, it's like, my dude, like, with that, like, we know you were probably trying to see her body because you're disgusting. Like, you're so fucked in the head. You're probably like, oh, like, nobody's gonna know. She's fucking dead. Let me just violate her body. And, like, sorry to be blunt about that, but, like, let's just face it. He was researching child pornography and her clothes were misplaced. And, like, for example, I think the reason they believed that he had done that is because her shirt didn't have stab wounds or blood on them. So it goes to show that her shirt was lifted or off of her when he stabbed her. Because if she was clothed, like he says, and as he's trying to claim to protect his character or what's left of it, the stab wounds and the tears would be on the shirt with the chest, but they don't match up. So it's just like all signs point to the fact that he declothed her, stared at her, touched her undead body, and then, yeah, stored her under his bed. So, sorry, it's kind of hard for me to talk about that. It's really disgusting. They had reason to believe with things like that it was just, he was just being a sicko. And it does make sense because that just doesn't line up. Let me know what you guys think about this, because this situation is definitely pretty fucked up. Again, I don't know why his previous offenses were never documented. I feel like if they were, perhaps he would have been sent to somebody to get professional help that could have assisted with him evaluating his feelings and his emotional turmoil. Because, again, I'm not defending him. I feel like the dad has major play into the way that he was acting, and I feel like it was good that they trialed him as an adult, because at 14 he's still a kid, yes, but he made the decision to kill her. Like, there's a difference between him accidentally hitting her in the head and then having a panic and then hitting her again, you know, and then maybe stopping it there and being like, okay, I fucked up, this is not the way to go. But then he deliberately drags her to the house, tries to tuck her body in under his waterbed, and then when he hears her breathing, instead of helping her and correcting himself, even then it wouldn't have been too late, he still deliberately grabbed a knife and then stabbed her more than 9 times combined in different areas of her body to purposely kill her. So it's a tough situation. He's a child himself and he killed a child, but his acts were that of a psychopath. Like, his acts were that of an adult, basically. So that's kind of like a brief skim through this situation. I mean, not even then. That is kind of the whole thing. I don't really want to speak on what Jessica experienced too much, because I think it's... Oh, hi, Sabrina. Okay. Hey, baby. Oh, she wants to be... Because even then, like, I don't want to speak too much on her experiences, because that's her story, that's her situation, and she, if you guys listen to the episode on, I'll put the information up on the screen, but if you listen to that episode with Morbid, they interview her, and she goes more into detail of her experience and her story, and I think you guys should definitely listen to it. It's a great podcast, and I think if anybody should tell the story, it should be her, especially because there is a recording of her story out there. Baby, I'm recording. I need you to be quiet, okay? Quiet for a minute. Come over here. you know, we never have anything like that in this kind of area of like crime time and mystery solving. Is a victim, a family member of a victim coming through and telling their story and speaking on it. So it's like, since it is out there, like, you guys should definitely check it out and like give it a listen, because I think that she clears the air and she clarifies quite a lot of things that people are either judging or misinforming the public about. Um, you know, so why not? Like, just listen to it. It's a great podcast, a great episode. But that's as far as I'm going to touch on the story itself and my opinions. I want to hear what you guys have to say and your opinions on it. So, you know, feel free to start a conversation in the comments down below, and I'd be happy to join you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you guys be safe.